So fathom for a moment, you're at your job and you work at this OMDB company that's showing people movie statistics. It's some IMDb type company. And you show your boss this really cool query that you can actually show people how much profit movies were making. And people were really interested in this query. That you're like, hey, using this cool query, I can show this database and I can show you, profit of movies by movie, by category, by actor. And people are like, this is amazing. People are going to want to see this. And you show them this query, which is what this does. And let's just take a look at so you can see what the results are. You can see here, this is revenue, this is budget, this is the profit. I'm going to just caution you for a moment that this is all Hollywood accounting. It's all reported numbers, which is to say none of it makes any sense. I left to you the article here of what a Hollywood accounting is, and basically it's just flat lies. But let's say your coworkers are very into this. Your boss says, like, this is amazing, great job, go make a dashboard that we can put on our front page. And literally all 10 million of our users are going to see it every day, several times a day. You go back to your desk, you run explain analyze, and you see, I cannot run a 7,000 cost, a 53 millisecond query 10 million times a day. That's a bad thing, right? So now you're like freaking out. What am I going to do about this? All I've ever learned how is to index individual rows. I haven't figured out how to index any sort of derivative information. You could do something like put it in Redis or something like that. You could query it and then populate a cache or something like that, but who wants to do that, especially if you don't have that stood up already? So there is actually a way you can actually index on derivative values. So you see this derivative value I have here, which is revenue minus budget. You can index on that. So I'm going to say create index IDX movies profit on movies. And then you just give it that part that you're going to index, which is coalesce revenue minus budget 0, right? Because we want movies that had no budget, no profit to be 0, which is fine. And then I need another one, right? And I also have to have one in front, which I did. Why do I have 2 at the end here? That's my question. Oh, right, because you need one around this as well. Parentheses, they'll get you. Okay, now I have this index around movies profit, and now I can actually query that, and if I do an explain here, again, doing the same query, I went from doing, what did I say, about 6,000, 7,000, something like that, yeah, 7,300 up here, to now I did it again, and I'm getting 1.33, because it's actually able to index this, and now anytime that I insert a new movie, it'll actually calculate this in advance, and it won't have to run these calculations on the fly. So I went from 7,000 to 1.33. I went from 53 milliseconds down to 0.13, 206, something like that.
So does it make like a hidden column? Essentially, like it's storing that whenever you update either of those columns, right?
Yeah. It is storing that. I'm hesitant to call it a hidden column because it's actually just totally separate.
Okay.
It's in a totally separate data structure. It doesn't get stored necessarily as the movie, it just gets stored as like a index, right? It's stored in a B tree, it's not stored in the table. I guess that's my point. But if you want to think of it as there is an indexed profit, which is a derivative value from the table, that's what it is, right? So I've kind of disclaimed this throughout my entire part of query performance. I am not a DBA. I have shown you a couple of very simple ways of doing indexing. Anything more complicated than this, you should really work with your team to figure out what's the best thing to do, because really big, difficult queries can make that really difficult. So, but for personal stuff and for simple tables and simple querying purposes, this would be enough. I'm more concerned that you know what's possible and you can identify problems than actually being able to articulate this is precisely the index and how I would use it. More you can say like, I know this is messed up and I know it can be fixed. And if you're using things like pgadmin or like you can go look at like DynamoDBs or Aurora or Cosmos DB or any of these like cloud databases, and you can ask it to track slow queries for you. And then later you can go write indexes for them. Some of these cloud companies are even starting to suggest, I see you run this query a lot. I see that it causes you a lot of trouble in your app. We suggest that you try this index. So they're actually getting smarter about it as they go.